Okay.
And she said, she pulled something up here.
Main Street.
And it showed it was the 365
Right.
program. So we'll go ahead and get started. And Dr. Dotson is the only one that's not here yet, but hopefully he'll be here in a few minutes. The first order of business tonight is to discuss the agenda items. City Manager.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, tonight on your agenda, on the consent agenda, item 4A are the minutes for the November 21st City Council regular meeting. Item 4B is a resolution authorizing Linebarger, Gogan, Blair, and Sampson to obtain an order of sale. This is for two properties, 315 South Orange Street and 502 Alameda Avenue. Both of these properties have delinquent taxes. Linebarger, Gogan, as our tax delinquency attorneys, have filed suit against both of those properties, but they remain unpaid. So the next action would authorize Dallas County to foreclose on the properties and authorize the sheriff's sale of those properties. And then if they are not purchased, Dallas County has the authority then to act as a selling agent and resell the property. Item 4C is a resolution authorizing purchase of personal computer and hardware related equipment from Dell USA. As we do with much of our equipment, computers we also have on a rotation basis, so as equipment monitors, keyboards get old, we do replace them. And so we have a contract with Dell for replacement of computers, keyboards, mice, docking stations, etc. And that estimated expenditure is in the amount of $150,000 for FY18, and that amount is in the FY18 budget. Item 4D is a resolution authorizing acceptance of as a subrecipient grant award from FEMA for the Emergency Management Performance Grant. This is a federal grant through FEMA for the purpose of providing a system of emergency preparedness. And we have applied for grant funding as reimbursement costs for the fire chief and for the regional emergency management coordinator, since both of them portion of their job duties, certainly the emergency management coordinator, all of her job duties revolve around emergency preparedness, but as well as part of the fire chief's salaries too. And this emergency management performance grant will reimburse us for a portion of those costs related to emergency management. So it's an amount of $32,528, and that grant period is October 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2018.
Did the other cities, we share our emergency coordinator, do they
Correct.
also apply for and get a grant?
They do for a portion of the emergency management coordinator as well as their fire staff. Yes, sir. And thanks to Tanya, who coordinates all of that grant request. Item 4E is a resolution authorizing purchase of mobile data computers, MDCs, from GTS Technology Solutions. This is through a state contract to the Department of Information Resources. And the MDCs are the computer terminals that are in each of the frontline and reserve fire vehicles and ambulances, which allow them to receive the dispatching orders. It also provides the GPS location back to dispatch, area maps, and a lot of related information that they need when they are on scene. These MDCs are budgeted in the FY18 budget for replacement. And that estimated cost is $62,841. Item 4F is amending the master fee schedule. There are actually two changes that we're proposing or two additions in the master fee schedule. One is the addition of the vacant structure properties registration fee that we discussed when we considered and approved that ordinance on vacant structures. And that proposed annual registration fee is $750, along with an inspection fee of 1 cent per square foot of space. While we were at it, we also realized here recently that a previous resolution in 2004 that established a policy for naming, for street naming, referenced an application fee of $125, but that was never included into the master fee schedule, and so we are including that as well with this ordinance. Those are all of the items on the consent agenda. And on the regular agenda is the consider approval of the park master plan. As you know, we had that on the agenda last meeting. The consultant was here and provided an overview of the park master plan, and that was postponed to this meeting for approval. Those are all of the items on the agenda.
Has anybody got anything they want to say about any of this? Questions to be asked? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right into item number 2, which is briefing and presentations. And the first one will be receive a presentation on the Southwest Regional Emergency Management Plan from the City of Duncanville prior to future consideration and adoption by the City Council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My position actually started on January 4th of 2016. So through an interlocal agreement with Cedar Hill, Duncanville, DeSoto, and Lancaster, I created my position to sort of oversee the emergency management program for all 4 communities. Our Duncanville, we've actually been on the Dallas County Emergency Management Plan since about 1983. In that Dallas County Emergency Management Plan, it talks a little bit about what the sheriff does, what the county fire marshal does, what the county auditor does. It doesn't really stipulate the cities that are participating on that plan and what their roles and responsibilities are for the plan. So our goal when I was hired was to create one emergency management plan for all 4 communities. So really what I want to do is sort of outline to you, provide you an overview of our plan. If you print it out, it's about a 5-inch binder. So really, I'm just going to sort of cover this at a high level. So feel free to ask any questions that you might have, and I'll go ahead and get started. So this is really what is an emergency. I really want to stipulate the difference between an emergency, a disaster, and a catastrophic event. So our fire department, police department respond to emergencies every single day. So it could be that we have an evacuation. We may be providing warning to the community. We also may be asking for external assistance from our mutual aid partners. And our EOC could be activated, or Emergency Operations Center could be activated during an emergency. Our disaster is a threat of a hazard. So some of the hazards I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. We will be providing warning and public instructions to our residents about what they should be doing during a disaster. We would be also utilizing mutual aid, and then our Emergency Operations Center will be activated. A disaster really overwhelms our local resources. So if we become overwhelmed and our mutual aid partners, such as Cedar Hill, DeSoto, and Lancaster, if they become overwhelmed, that's really what a disaster is. And I'll talk a little bit about the disaster declaration process in just a little bit. All right, so catastrophic event is a natural or man-made occurrence. This is really where if a community gets overwhelmed, this may be a state or federal disaster declaration. It really will devastate our economy. It'll also cause a lot of property damage. We could have some fatalities as well. So sort of think about Hurricane Harvey as an example of a catastrophic event. Of course, it was the state's largest disaster so far. So some of the hazards that we face as a community, I know it's hard to read, but tornadoes, power failures, flooding events, severe thunderstorms, infectious disease outbreaks, Hazardous material releases, the threat of terrorism. We are in an urban metro area. Winter storms, we're approaching winter weather season. Wildland fires, extreme temperatures, both cold and extreme heat. And then of course the threat for the potential for earthquakes. So really our objectives for emergency management is to protect life, property, and the environment. And how we do that is we have our resources as local government, but we also partner with other agencies like the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, could be volunteer organizations, could be civic organizations. We all come together to respond to an emergency or disaster. So our Emergency Operations Center is located down at Fire Station number 1, at Fire Administration. Really the goal for the EOC is to provide incident support. So we're not replacing what's happening on scene. We're working with the incident commander on what that person needs, what types of resources. We're also providing instructions. We may be providing warning through either our outdoor warning siren system or for Everbridge. So Everbridge is our emergency notification system that provides information to the public from text, voice, or an email. Also, the EOC is also providing probably the activation of a shelter. So if we have, let's say, some neighborhoods that are impacted by a disaster and they're not safe to be at home, we may activate the recreation center. I'll give an example as a shelter. So we may need transportation and of course coordinating with law enforcement on routes that are damaged, maybe rerouting traffic, a traffic plan, that sort of thing. So the process for receiving assistance is we have our local mutual aid agreement. So again, our neighboring communities are providing us resources. So if we run out of resources, then our next step in that chain, according to Chapter 418 of the Government Code, is to make that request to Dallas County. So we would make the request to Dallas County. They would make any available resources that they may have or own. If they've exhausted those resources, they will then make that request on our behalf to the state. So for us, our counterpart of the state is the DPS office in Garland. So the DPS chair is the captain of the Highway Patrol. He sort of has the checkbook of 33 state agencies that are in our area that can provide us some state resources. If we exhaust our resources up here for Region 1, so Region 1 for DPS goes all the way to Texarkana, Red River, Mineral Wells, down to Corsicana. So if they exhaust all of those resources, then they'll make the request to the State Operations Center in Austin. And they will find those resources somewhere else in the state and then bring them to us. So a disaster declaration is if we're impacted by a disaster and it overwhelms our resources, we have the ability to do a disaster declaration. So we work with, of course, Mr. Hager and the mayor. We either have an emergency council meeting to formalize an actual disaster declaration. The declaration would be signed by the mayor and we get that to the county judge. So the county judge then would make the determination if we've met a specific threshold. So for Dallas County, we have to have about 8.4 million in uninsured losses to have a disaster declaration for Dallas County. And they base that on population and a certain dollar amount to identify an uninsured threshold. For the state, in order for us to have a state declaration, we have to have almost 36.2 million. So it's a lot of uninsured losses to get to a state declaration where then the governor would then ask the president through FEMA to have a presidentially declared disaster, and that's sort of what happened with Hurricane Harvey. The local jurisdiction, we can declare a disaster, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be eligible for state or federal assistance. So we have to have that sort of 8.4 million in order to get those declarations. So for emergency management, we have really 4 phases. Right now we're in the preparedness. We're preparing the community for disasters, making sure that our residents are prepared, our local businesses are prepared. Mitigation is prior to the disaster or after the disaster. We do have an approved mitigation plan. We're on the Dallas County Mitigation Action Plan. That really allows for us to be able to apply for hazard mitigation grants. by having a mitigation plan. Mitigation really is, we're trying to mitigate the threat to human life or property from the hazards that we talked about earlier. Response, of course, is our city departments responding to an emergency or disaster, like the fire department, the police department, public works, parks. And then recovery is all of those things that happened after the last person is sort of transported off the scene. You have long-term recovery, so that's really what's going on in South Texas and Southeast Texas right now, is that long-term recovery. You have housing issues, you have economic recovery issues. All of those processes sort of take a long time, so usually sometimes years, sometimes decades. So, Mayor Green, here's some of your roles and responsibilities as the mayor. Establishing the objectives for the emergency management program. Under state law, the mayor is the emergency management director, and he has appointed the emergency management coordinator. For this case is Chief Rody, and then the assistant emergency management coordinator is Assistant Chief Chase. Some other responsibilities would be with the assistance of the public information officers, keeping the public informed of what's going on as it relates to emergency situations, the declaration of the disaster and making sure that we get that to the county judge and to the state. Also with the assistance of our local government, other cities in the county on requesting those resources, and then also the possible activation of our Emergency Operations Center. So Mr. Hugman, here's some responsibilities as outlined by state law for the city manager. Is really implementing policies and decisions based on the governing body for emergency management, identifying personnel, equipment, and facility needs, also tasking departments and agencies, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means for Duncanville. We've identified city departments that have a role and responsibility in our emergency plans. And then of course coordinating the operational response of local emergency services. This happens through mutual aid all the time. We send engines and ambulances and law enforcement personnel, to varying cities that request our assistance, and then of course the activation of the EOC. So these are roles and responsibilities for Chief Rody as the emergency management coordinator. I won't read all of them, but keeping the mayor and city manager apprised of the emergency preparedness statuses, planning, keeping a resource inventory, maintaining a point of contact list for resources, training for emergency management personnel and emergency responders, exercising, testing our plans, training to our plans, developing procedures for the Emergency Operations Center, which he manages, implementing policies and decisions of the governing body related to emergency management, and of course the organization of the emergency management program. Activation of the EOC is really the day-to-day liaison with emergency management personnel, working with organized volunteer groups, and then overseeing the preparedness program for the city of Duncanville. And then determining if the city is eligible for state and federal assistance, and then working on the reimbursement for through a declaration of disaster. If public assistance is available through FEMA or the state is offering reimbursement, is to seek that reimbursement. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about each of the different annexes. So what I sort of talked about was the emergency management plan. As a part of our plans, we have several annexes that outline roles and responsibilities. So for the city of Duncanville, on how we activate warning. So for the city of Duncanville, we have SWRCC that provides warning to the public. So we do that through a couple of different ways. We have the ability to activate our Everbridge, which is our emergency notification system. We also have the ability to activate our outdoor warning siren system. So SWRCC has the ability to activate Cedar Hill, Duncanville, and DeSoto sirens simultaneously. And we do that when there is a tornado warning that's been issued by the National Weather Service that will impact our area, that will provide advanced warning. So when, let's say if it hits Cedar Hill first, that they're sounding the sirens simultaneously to give our residents some advanced warning. So communications outlines how we communicate, how our interoperable communication, how we communicate with our neighbors. So for us, it's Southwest Regional Communication Center. We're communicating with them for fire, police, and EMS on the status of our resources, and how we're communicating. They're assigning channels for specific incidents. So if we have a structure fire, they're identifying what channel that those responders go to, and they have a dispatcher that monitors that particular channel. Same thing for law enforcement. And then also on communication, we have Southwest Dallas Amateur Radio Club. They are an amateur radio club in our area, made up of residents that live here or work here in the community, that are that go on a net that's established by the National Weather Service. So they're monitoring weather and providing ground truth, and that's also identified in our communications annex. Mass care and sheltering. So this identifies the shelters that are available in the city of Duncanville. We do have agreements with the American Red Cross to sort of serve as the shelter manager. They run and operate the dormitory, and they do registration. So we do that through our Parks and Rec facility. We do that through a statement of agreement. They will also provide feeding, emergency food supplies, and they also do case management with our residents. So just for your own knowledge, if we had a structure fire that happened, either the battalion chief or SWRCC would call the Red Cross, and this happens almost every single day. If we have a structure fire and it impacts a family, so the Red Cross has been a partner. Even though it's not a disaster, it's a disaster for that family. So if we have an apartment fire or something like that, they'll do case management to find out what their needs are and get those needs met. So radiological, we do have radiological waste that goes down Interstate 20 every single day. It's called transuranic waste. It goes to Carlsbad, New Mexico for final disposition. We also have fixed sites within our 4 cities of radiological that house radiological material. So the fire department maintains a inventory of radiological equipment and has training on for radiological. So the fire department is assigned for Annex D radiological. Annex E, evacuation. If we have to evacuate an impacted area of our community, the police department's responsible for identifying those areas for evacuation and performing evacuation. The fire department can assist with that, but the police department's responsible for going door to door, having squad cars in those areas to try to get the people out. And most likely, if they don't have transportation, they'll make that request, and we can get buses to that impacted area to take them to a shelter until the area is deemed safe for them to return. So firefighting, of course, is the fire department. They're doing fire prevention, fire detection, hazardous material, oil spill response, and they do that through. We do that through a agreement with Dallas Fire Rescue. They have the hazmat team that supports hazmat for the 4 cities. Fire safety, preparing and maintaining a fire resource inventory. They're also conducting search and rescue activities, and they may need specialized resources they can request through mutual aid to include technical rescue and that sort of thing. Annex G is law enforcement, which is our police department. They're maintaining law and order, traffic control, terrorist incident response, security for vital facilities, evacuated areas and shelters. Our police department went to assist with augmenting Dallas Police Department's resources over at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center during Hurricane Harvey. And that was done through a request by Dallas County, and of course receiving reimbursement for those. But if something were to happen in our city, our police department would be providing security for our shelters in the city. Also help provide warning support, and then post-recon and damage assessment. Most of the time, law enforcement or fire is first on scene, and they can communicate back to SWRCC on what their impacts are. And then they're also maintaining a law enforcement resource inventory to include SWAT resources. Annex H is health and medical, so pretty much anything health and medical related, EMS, public health. We do fall under Dallas County Health and Human Services. And then under this particular annex is also mass fatality. Since we're in Dallas County, we fall under the Dallas County Mass Fatality Plan, which outlines how many fatalities would overwhelm our Dallas County Medical Examiner's office. The fire department would also be responsible for the health and safety of our residents. This is more specifically EMS. We do this every single day. Annex I is public information, so this is our public information officers for all 4 communities. We also have police PIOs, fire PIOs, and city PIOs. So the public information officer is working with multiple agencies, maybe to establish a joint information center to get that message out to the general public about what is happening. Maybe it's with the school district, maybe it's with the Red Cross, maybe it's with the county, so it depends on what the situation is. They're conducting hazard awareness and public education programs, also providing information to the media, arranging for media briefings, also handling documentation for the incident, such as photos and videos and things like that. And then, of course, the PIO sharing responsibility, depending on, we have department PIOs. So the PIO function is very important now with the age of social media, is making sure that we're aware of our residents and how they're communicating on social media, that we're getting our presence out there, as well as updating our website and press releases. And if we had something happen in our city, we probably would have several VIPs that probably would want to tour the damaged area and that sort of thing. That function would go through the public information officer. Annex J is recovery. This is for us as the emergency management coordinator working with finance. We're conducting damage assessments post-disaster, and we're identifying damage to public and private property. We have to communicate that information to Dallas County after the disaster on how many fatalities, how many casualties, how much loss do we have within the community for damage. And then also we would map those areas through GIS, and then we'd be working very closely with finance on if there is a federally declared disaster on the reimbursement through the public assistance program. So that's why we have finance up there. Annex K is Public Works and Engineering. This is what Public Works does every single day. They're protecting government facilities, especially vital equipment. Think about water, wastewater, our streets, our transportation network. They're assessing damage to streets, buildings, bridges, traffic control devices. They're also restoring damaged roads and bridges. Also handling damage assessment, and then building inspections and specialized equipment support. We also have an agreement with our regional public works response team, or public works emergency response team. This is basically about 53 jurisdictions in the Dallas-Fort Worth area worth of public works equipment. So they've been a group since about 2012. Their first disaster was the Lancaster tornado. And they've had several disasters since then. Most recently was the 2015 tornadoes that impacted Dallas County, specifically Garland and Rowlett. Provided a lot of support to the community on debris removal for the first 70 hours. And then after the first 70 hours, then contracts in place for debris removal. So we do have contracts in place to augment our local resources. So if it overwhelms our resources as a region, then we can certainly utilize contracts to help with our debris removal process.
Who we contracted with?
Because I have 4. This 1 second. Okay, so for debris, we have Saris Environmental. Our secondary is DRC Emergency Services out of Galveston, and then the third is TFR Enterprises out of Leander, Texas, down by Austin. And if we have to have a debris monitoring, we do have contracts in place. FEMA requires if you are removing, if it's a federally declared disaster, you're removing the debris, it has to be monitored from where it was picked up to its final disposition at the landfill. So you have a monitor that monitors the company that's removing it. So and our monitor is Tetra Tech.
So where would they take the debris, to a local landfill?
So that's a great question. So what would happen is we would have to stage the debris first. So they would be making the first pass, so specifically streets would clear that first path to get debris out of the right of way, so police, fire, and EMS can get through, do their search and rescue, and at that point then they would take it to a temporary staging site. So we've been working with our EOC group to identify available land plots in our area. Typically they want several acres because it has to be a large site to truck in this debris. So you have to segregate the debris. What I'm talking about is like vegetative debris, and they could grind it and then either give that mulch back to the community, put it in parks, or have our residents come get it. And the other types of debris would go to the landfill, so we'd have to...
The local landfill?
Correct. Probably would go to Ferris, or there's 2 or 3 different landfills that it could go to. So our public works would due to the limited resources that we have, we would really need the public works emergency response team to come in and assist us with dump trucks and front end loaders and stuff for that first 70 hours until the contractor could come in and start that process of removing that debris. Rowlett spent about $8 million in debris. So debris from people's homes are putting it out on the right of way, and the debris so it really depends on if it's a flood or a wind generating event on how much debris that you'll have and that sort of thing. That's really a big challenge right now for Hurricane Harvey, is the amount of debris that they have to deal with. So it's a great question. Annex L is utilities. So our public works department is really on the repair and restoration of our public facilities, specifically water and wastewater. Annex M is resource management. So for us, that's purchasing and emergency management. We work closely with our voluntary organizations active in disaster, like the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and there's about 25 or 30 volunteer organizations in Dallas County that do disaster response. And so we'd be working with them to bring in those available resources. And then also anything that we can't get donated through a volunteer organization, we would have to procure. So that's where purchasing would come in. FEMA has very stringent procurement rules, so we have to make sure that we're following our own rules, the state rules, but also federal procurement laws in the event that there was a federally declared disaster, and we can recoup these costs. Annex N is EOC Direction and Control. This is how we operate our Emergency Operations Center. So we have identified personnel that sit in the EOC to perform functions such as situational awareness, coordination of resources, and tracking those resources, and then doing an incident action plan on how we're going to operate for the next operational period. So for the City of Duncanville, it's the city manager and the emergency management coordinator. The EOC is a operations center that will function 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until the response has ended, and then we identify, will probably be activated through at least the first part of the recovery piece on coordinating various functions within the Emergency Operations Center. Annex O is Human Services. This annex couples with Annex C, Mass Care and Sheltering. So this is how we feed people, we clothe people, we do case management, we identify those that have special needs, what those needs are, and try to get those needs met. And then the provision of disaster mental health services. Annex P is hazard mitigation. So that's myself is responsible for coordinating with the 4 cities and Dallas County on identifying our natural hazards, and then identifying with our city departments on strategies on how we can mitigate the loss of life or the loss of property. Hazardous material. So the fire department is responsible for a hazmat situation. We have fixed sites within the 4 cities, but we also have transportation hazmats that happen regularly along the interstate highways and that sort of thing. So establishing a hot, cold, and warm zone, appropriate actions to control or eliminate the hazard. The fire department does this in conjunction with Dallas Fire Rescue on mitigating the threat of hazardous material to the community. Annex R is search and rescue. So the fire department coordinating and conducting search and rescue operations. Also identifying specialized resources to support rescue operations. So if it's a trench rescue or high angle rescue, low angle rescue, technical rescue, so there's different types of rescue, and the fire department would then identify those, the closest agencies that have those resources and get those to us as quickly as possible. Annex S is transportation. So our Parks and Rec department has 2 buses We also work very closely with Duncanville ISD. They have 72 buses. So if in the event that we have a need for transportation during a disaster, maybe someone's car is impacted by the disaster, people live at home every day without a car, is getting people out of harm's way to a shelter as quickly as possible. And we do that through this particular annex, which is transportation. And in the event we don't have enough buses, of course, we have mutual aid agreements with our surrounding cities that also have buses. Annex T is donation and volunteer management. During a disaster, lots of people want to come out and help. Our community wants to help, and of course people want to donate goods and services to the community to try to help with that recovery. So we have several departments that would help with the donations and volunteer management. So with coordination with the assistant city manager, library, emergency management, and then our volunteer organizations that are active in disaster. Really our goal is to make sure that the agencies that are assisting us, like the Red Cross and Salvation Army, that if we're requesting donations, that any monetary donations go to the agencies that are assisting us. We should not, I guess the goal, if we have a disaster, is to identify what those needs are and try to get those needs met. The challenge that we have is making sure that we're not asking for anything and everything, that we have a specific need, and then also making sure that we're not asking for used items, because after the Hurricane Harvey, we had our EOC group actually go to the organization that handled donations for Hurricane Harvey in Dallas called Trusted World. And it was a 340,000 square foot warehouse of mostly used items that were donated by people, and most of that stuff was not usable for that disaster, and they end up having to pack a lot of that stuff up and find an agency down in the impacted area, down in the Houston and Southeast Texas area, to receive those goods. So making sure that we have a plan in place on the coordination of donations, and then also the volunteer management. There is a organization called the Mass Care Task Force. That's the Red Cross, Salvation Army, Volunteer Now, and the North Texas Food Bank. And so we can coordinate our volunteer effort to assist those agencies that would be assisting us. And then our second to last annex is Annex U, Legal. So this is working with the city attorney on emergency powers, curfews, price gouging, and the disaster declaration process, and coordinating the disaster declaration with the mayor and council on issuing that disaster declaration, making sure we're getting it to the county timely. And then our very last annex is Annex B, which is terrorism. The police department's responsible for anti-terrorism activities. They're working with other law enforcement agencies on intelligence, investigation, the protection of our facilities, public awareness, offensive counterterrorism operations. They'll also be working with the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Force. They would be identifying the lead agency for deterring and preventing the threat for a terrorism attack, and then of course the response and recovery to such an incident. And so our police department, goes to regular training, and of course we have regular exercises. Our region had in 2016 in November, a Big X exercise. We had 40 sites across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and many of those scenarios were terrorism based. You think about what's happened across the world on the threat of terrorism, and making sure that our law enforcement agencies are prepared for such an event. So our city departments that are not identified in our emergency plan will make their resources and personnel available at the direction of the mayor, city manager, or emergency management coordinator, because it's going to take a team to respond to a catastrophic event. And these are just a list of some of the volunteer organizations that I was talking about. So our Dallas County VOAD, we have the Texas Baptist Men, we have United Way 211, Seventh-day Adventist, or Adventist Community Services, North Texas Food Bank, Volunteer Now. There's about 25 different agencies that I meet with regularly that have a disaster mission. These are our emergency operations center locations for all 4 cities. So Cedar Hill is at the Government Center, and DeSoto is at Town Center, and then our EOC is at Fire Administration, and then Lancaster is at their Public Safety Building. So the levels of readiness for our EOC, level 4 is our normal day-to-day operations, and as we're scaling up for a disaster, we can either move to a level 3, a level 2, or a level 1. Level 1 being maximum readiness. So let's say if there's a threat for winter weather, we could scale to a level 3. We're sort of monitoring weather as it's coming in, and then maybe we're moving to a level 2 or level 1. So we're identifying staff that would be working in the EOC for different types of disasters. Disaster costs, very important. We're capturing personnel time, equipment time, what we're buying, contracts. We did this just with Hurricane Harvey on the activation of resources from the state, asking the local government for those resources, and of course capturing those costs and submitting for reimbursement. We do 3 exercises annually as a part of the EMPG, or Emergency Management Performance Grant. So we do discussion-based exercises all the way to operations-based exercises. We have an exercise actually next Thursday. It's a winter weather tabletop exercise. The National Weather Service will come in and give us their forecast for the winter months. TxDOT will do a presentation on their de-icing and sanding plan for our community, specifically 67, 35, and 20. And then we'll also discuss with our city departments on roles and responsibilities for preparing our equipment, our facilities, alert notification to the public regarding winter weather. That's pretty much all I have. I know there's a lot, sort of covered a lot. There's a lot as it relates to emergency management, but I sort of want to provide you an overview at a high level on the various aspects of our plans. So sort of open up to whatever questions you guys might have.
So our goal, Mayor and Council, is to bring the emergency management plan to you on your next agenda on December 19th for approval. As Tanya said, right now we're under the Dallas County Emergency Plan, so this will then adopt our regional emergency plan. Tanya will not be able to be here December 19th. She will be in DeSoto briefing their city council because they have it on their agenda that night as well. So we wanted to brief you this time so in preparation for the next meeting.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Item number 2B, presentation and discussion of the traffic signal box ARC program.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. It's my pleasure as the Park Superintendent to present this topic to you. I'm going to quickly go through these slides here and start off with the visual examples of what we're talking about. Every signalized intersection has a traffic signal box, also traffic signal cabinets they may be referred to as, or that's where all the brains for the control of the intersection are. And this is a way to take something that is somewhat intrusive in the eye of the beholder at an intersection and actually turn it into something that can be very appreciative as art. The bottom left is actually a submission that was submitted and done as a winner in the city of Grand Prairie. And I'll get to that in a little further detail, but there's a wide range of box configurations and different ways that it can be presented. So we have 5 suggested locations that are down in the heart of town, more or less, so right up on Main Street. You'll see up there at the top, and I'll actually zoom into each location here. We start at Main and Davis. It's on the southwest corner there. Next one is at Santa Fe and Center on the northwest corner. As these are all proposed possible sites, we're not set on any one of them necessarily. Wheatland and Santa Fe on the northwest corner. Wheatland and Main on the southeast corner there. And then at Wheatland and Freeman right by Reed there. And so wanted to talk to you briefly about the idea of art, and it's been a proven fact that art stimulates the mind. It is something that can be actually a stress relief to actually engage in art and drawing and those type of things, but it was also an item that was recommended by the 2017 comprehensive plan. And it actually mentioned specifically about having a Public Art Commission, and very consistent with this proposal supported by multiple residents in the Duncanville Design Studio is this traffic signal box art program. And so staff was given the task of checking this out, seeing if it was a viable idea. Multiple cities were contacted, including Grand Prairie, which is as a next door neighbor. I reached out to them, and they actually were in the throes of this call to artists, and they were very open and invited me to participate in watching the judging of it and stuff. And so funding has been identified in the Innovation Fund. If we were to do up to 5 of them at the cost of $1,000 each, that would be about $5,000. And I'd like to mention a little bit about the City of Grand Prairie Public Art Program, just because it was such a phenomenal support from the community. They had over 189,000 views of their video that was explaining this call to artists they put out. It received over 2,600 comments and shares. They received 161 submittals. They had opened it up to anyone across the state of Texas was eligible to submit, and they had 2 themes. One was environment and one was water conservation. They had over 20 resident judges that came from the community, all different walks of life, HOA, art teachers, city council member. It was all kinds of different people there, and I was really privileged to be able to watch and see the submittals there. It was a phenomenal amount of talent. And so in doing so, observing all of this, we have developed a framework for consideration by the City Council as perhaps an organic first step in bringing art to Duncanville in a deeper way. People have probably seen the panels on the feed store. This would be another avenue. So in this, we came up with some guidelines to start off the conversation. One of the items was what would we require as far as a resident or not. And at this point, we are deciding that we'd like to limit it to the Duncanville residents or Duncanville ISD students, perhaps, as well. Excuse me. The selected art would be applied up to 5 traffic signal boxes, and it would be done through a digitally printed vinyl wrap that you may have seen before on different vehicles, advertising products and stuff. And so very professionally done. A proposal concept template will be provided to the artist, which back in, oh, it's too far back. Right there, you can see in the bottom left how it's exploded out. That's all of the different sides of the traffic signal box, so you can actually, as an artist, draw out what you're going to have on every single side of it. And there will be 3 themes that we would like to see if the council would give us guidance as to what those themes would be. We have a few themes to pitch at you on the next slide. We would use local judges that would be vetted by their art experience. That'd be Duncanville residents, possibly local business owners. DSD art teachers are all possibilities. A $300 payment would be the result of a signed contract with the selected winner. And the goal start date of this would be January 15th, 2018, if the council is supportive of this program. So the items for discussion or questions, directions that we're looking for is which of the following 3 themes would you like for the artwork to follow? City of Champions, History of Duncanville, Nature in Duncanville, Duncanville Military History, Classic Movies, Architectural Design in Duncanville, Celebrate Duncanville, an Inclusive Duncanville Community, or are there possibly other themes that we didn't think of as staff researching this? So we'd like to see what the kind of involvement that the City Council would like in this program, and if there's any other recommendations or changes. So, you know, I'm throwing a lot out at you at once here, but kind of seeking some feedback.
I like one of the history of Duncanville. I think that's important because we've got a good story to tell.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Tim, could you get the slide that's got the map where the fire below, and the city map where the fire below is?
Yes, sir.
Certainly one of them could be military history, right there by the Memorial Park.
Certainly.
It's going to be a challenge with the backup battery supplies on the side of those cabinets, so ours aren't just nice little rectangular boxes like those that you pictured were.
Yes, exactly, and the one that actually that Graham Curry has, they have those boxes as well. They're kind of pictured. Let me see if I have my pointer here, handy dandy pointer. We've got that, and then the little box right here too, that they're trying to depict in that, trying to flatten it out to show all sides. But this particular people who are going to apply the vinyl wrap are experienced in this.
Go back to the selection.
Yes, sir. So I've heard history of Duncanville, Duncanville military history.
Do we have to limit it to 30?
We wanted to try to help focus the artist on it, but I suppose we could entertain more.
Well, I want to do the city of Champions
Yes,
with
yeah,
all of
yeah,
our
yeah.
sports
Yeah.
teams stuff.
Excuse me.
Would there be any desire of the city council as far as being involved in the process at all? Being evaluation of art?
You want us to draw something?
Oh, no, we'll
I'll get my grandson to do
there
it.
you go.
The intent that you were talking about though was to have a panel of people to select the winning designs then of artists in the community, art teachers, perhaps business people. So there would be some panel that would select the
Dr.
recommended.
Dotson might have an eye for it, but
Yeah,
I don't.
Sure.
Well, you've got people like the design studio, and then you've got some very talented art teachers in Duncanville and some great artists.
Indeed.
So,
That's certainly why we wanted to involve the school district and look forward to partnering with them on this.
they certainly know better than I.
Someone had even made a suggestion of trying to see if they would be interested in doing, if the school district would be interested in funding one or two over by their campuses that would actually, because actually the one by Reed at Wheatland and Freeman, but you know, if that celebrated one of their artists, I don't know how many people know, but one of the high school students' art was selected for one of the months of the Don't Mess with Texas calendar for next year. So.
Well, and I think the location might dictate the theme, just like the military history, instead of having just a theme for the entire city.
And we would hope that, okay, I see.
Yeah, and then you could, over by the high school or something, you could maybe do the athletic, and if that's one of the ones you chose to do.
What if we stipulated a theme for a particular one, like the one by the War Memorial? Stipulate that would be with the theme of Duncanville military history. Is that something that y'all would want to do? That way we
That's
just
my
kind of up in
suggestion.
front.
Yeah, I think that would be good, because
And then the other one's.
looking at that over there, that's one of the prettiest war memorial for a city that I've seen. You know, it's landscaped beautifully, and it's nicely kept, and it's really a nice spot there.
I think it would be nice if whichever one has the most traffic, is the inclusive Duncanville community.
Go back to the map.
Okay. That would probably be the one down here at Wheatland and Maine, I think, possibly. That would
Right
have
by
the
the
most
center of
traffic
town,
right there.
yeah.
So I've heard 4 different suggestions. Would we like to take those 4 and run with them? Is that your all's direction, or how would you all like us to frame this for the contestants?
So they would pick one of those?
One of those, right?
One of those.
Yeah, and so truly, and that's why that's why we also we say 5. It's up to 5, possibly, that would be done. It doesn't have to be 5 that we do. Could be less, especially like if we don't get a submittal for military history, maybe we don't do that one by the memorial, just because we do want to try to reserve that for that.
And if it's really successful, then we could also look at expanding this thing too.
We have 45 signalized intersections, 46, so close.
Yeah, we got that one fixed. We're back to 36.
So there's lots of opportunity, for sure.
Yeah.
This is something the community wants, but possibly business is willing to donate, who knows?
This would be a good test, start out with. Fine.
Okay.
So suggested theme of Duncanville military history for the one near the War Memorial, inclusive Duncanville community for the one on Main and Wheatland, and then any of those 4 themes for the other ones. That kind of what?
I'm a bit confused. Will they run with the 4 suggestions we've thrown out so far and choose one of those, and it would be the same throughout the city?
No, it would be all different.
Okay,
It would be all
all right,
different.
okay.
Exactly, and it could be that there would be 2 from the same thing, but they won't likely look very similar.
But it could be that somebody wouldn't pick, one of them might not get picked. Is that?
It's possible.
But Grand Prairie went with 3 themes, is that right?
They had 2 themes, actually, 2 themes, and they were doing 20 signal boxes. So this was a significant endeavor. They were actually doing directly painting on the unit. We're not quite comfortable with that. Permanent.
Stainless steel.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, so. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And our final one is 2C, and that's discuss creating a Duncanville logo design committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, if you remember right, during the September 19th meeting, the City Council elected to use the firm Misfit Brands to design the new Duncanville logo and branding. So the next step really where we're at tonight is for the City Council to establish an ad hoc Duncanville logo design committee. The appointed committee will work with the consultants once they gain input from the residents along with city staff to help develop this new logo and the branding efforts. The consultant has recommended that we appoint 7 residents to a committee, and that way it would give the opportunity for each council member to appoint or elect a resident that they choose. So really tonight what I'm looking for is some input in terms of if you're okay with that direction of every council member appointing 1, or if there's a different direction or a different way that you would like to handle the ad hoc committee in terms of it being established.
And this would also then be on your next council
It will,
agenda
for final.
for approval. Just wanted to put this out to y'all now.
And how would you do this? You would ask for names to be submitted like we've done for other
Yes,
committees?
each council member to submit 1 name. That's correct.
So are the names gonna be at the next meeting? Is that what we're voting on? What are we voting on?
Yeah, if you would let us know, and we'll bring all the names back next meeting with a resolution to establish that committee.
Is that agreeable with everybody?
Councilmember Schwartz has already given us his recommendation. He won't be here for the meeting, so.
Right?
All right.
Okay, that sounds
Right.
great. Thank you.
Okay, that covers our briefing sessions. So at this point, it is now 7:01. We will end the meeting, close the meeting, and we will begin our regular session as soon as you can get in there. It's now 7:09, and we'll call the council meeting to order. Our first order of business tonight will be our invocation, and it will be led by our own finance director, Richard Summerling. And following that, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flags. So at this time, will you please stand?
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for the blessings that you have bestowed upon our community and upon our leaders. We ask that you would continue to guide our city. We ask your blessings on our council members, our city management, and we ask that you would continue to guide us as we face challenges for implementation of the comprehensive plan, and that you help us during the strategic planning that we will need to take place in order to implement that. We thank you for all that you do. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge the allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, my mayor's report tonight is, I want to tell you, last Friday night, if you weren't here, you missed it. We had a great Christmas parade and tree lighting ceremony. I think there were 40 different units in the parade. The crowd was the largest I have ever seen in Duncanville. And it was set up, security was good, the parade was excellent. And I think everybody had a really good time. And so we need to thank, first of all, our park department and our city staff for arranging such a good parade, and then give kudos to our children's choirs from the school district for the music that they provided after the tree lighting ceremony. So I want to tell you, Duncanville's 4th of July parade, as well as our Christmas parade, are just plain old home down citizen involvement parades, and that's what makes it such a great time. So we want to thank everybody involved and tell you, if you weren't here, you should have been. Council member reports. City manager report. I want to say that we're a bit short up here tonight. We've had sickness, looks like it really takes over. Councilwoman Jameson is in Houston. They had a death in the family. Councilwoman Thomas, his father, who is very ill. And then Dr. Dotson just got called to the hospital. So I guess we're going to have a new baby born soon. So, but we're here. They've Dr. Dotson participated in our pre-meeting, but was called just a while ago. So we'll take care of business tonight. Item number 2 is proclamations and presentations, and 2A is recognition of Keep Duncanville Beautiful. Before we do that, however, though, we did not have any council members that wanted to report. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Then 2A is recognition of Keep Duncanville Beautiful Winter 2017 Curb Appeal Residential Properties.
Thank Council. I am very pleased to present the winners that we have for our Curb Appeal Awards. Standing beside me is Bobby Cutler-Hill, who is our chairwoman for our Keep Duncanville Beautiful Committee. So very glad to have her here tonight as well representing. So for District 1, we have Blake and Mary Flickner from 418 North Casa Grande Circle. And I would ask that if you are present here, if you would come down to the front, we'll take a group picture all at once to recognize you. District 2 is Esperanza Ruiz from 243 Hamilton Street. If you'd come on down, thank you. From District 3, we have Michael and Rebecca Gramillion, 727 South Forest Lane. District 4, we have Jose and Yolanda Salcedo at 1710 Sparta Drive. And District 5, we have Stephen and Kelly Walter at 1211 Statler Drive. And I would really be remiss if I didn't recognize the board members, even though they're not here, that put forth the effort to drive each one of these districts, including our chairwoman, Hill here, who has faithfully served on this committee for a long time. I would also like to say we really appreciate residents like yourself who take pride in their homes and the upkeep of them on the outside. We really appreciate it. So if everyone would give her a hand, thank you. Let's get a picture together.
Item number 2B is to recognize and honor library design contest winners.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Recently, we had a library design, card design contest. This is my adult services librarian, Stephanie Lott from the library. And we'd had the same library card for many years and decided it'd be a great opportunity to involve the citizens of Duncanville as well as students of DISD to participate and create our new library cards. And we had 2 divisions. We had a youth division and an adult division for design. So we'd like to present the winners to you tonight for our new cards, and I think all of our winners are here, and so we can present them to you as well. So our youth winner is Lydia Radke. And I will show you all that winner here. So come on down. And this is yours to keep. And then our adult winner was Mr. Rashid Khalil. And I'd like him to come down too. And his daughter is featured in the card, so she's here as well. We had several dozen submissions, and the friends of the Duncanville Public Library were the ones that helped us select the winners. So we're very grateful for their participation and helping us to pick these wonderful people to win. We're in the process of ordering the cards, and each of our winners will get the very first copy of each of those cards for themselves. So thank you very much for participating, and we're happy to have those cards in our system for everybody to have. So thank you very much.
Item number 3 is our citizens' input, and I have 2 cards tonight, so I would ask that as your name is called, that you come down and give your name and address to the city secretary for the records, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Patricia Ebert.
Patricia Ebert, 115 South Greenstone Court. Tonight, I want to bring to your attention, out of your own background information, some points that I am concerned about in the master park plan. And the first one is on page 304 of your background information, when it talks about Quail Run Park. It talks about it's a 4+ acre undeveloped parkland, and very few people in the town know that it's at the corner of Greenstone and West Ridge. Very few people are aware of that because, well, one, it doesn't have a sign, and so that would be something that needed to be added there to your list. But a lot of us know the corner of of West Ridge and Greenstone is ground zero for testing positive for West Nile virus. Even the city code enforcement know that. For the last 3 years at least, that area has tested positive for West Nile virus. It's like Ricky Ricardo would say, explain that one to me. We're going to put a dog park there and benches and picnic tables. And then the second one is on Rotary Park, still from 304. It talks about the new amenities that you want to add to an already developed park. And the amenities include parking, which, boy, we know we need that because there are a lot of cars that park in the neighborhood to go to that park. But one of the amenities I want to add is the new basketball court. And then it talks about all the other amenities to add, and it's a small park, very nice park, but a very small park. And I'm not sure how it's going to get everything in all the amenities in that small footprint. And if it does get them in there, we don't have a green belt anymore. And at the January town hall,
Dario Crosetto.
Good evening, council member. Dario Crosetto, 900 Hideaway Place in DeSoto, Texas. I would like to respectfully inform the council members and the citizens that because during the past month there has been serious violation to the basic mission of a sister city also embraced by the President Eisenhower, who created Sister City International to promote peace through mutual respect and dialogue, which is the basic for the understanding and cooperation among people of different countries. I have created a website that is duncanvillemonasterolo.com, which is still under construction, but I am going to put just facts documents, that is reporting facts that prove several violations. I urge to inform all people who are interested in the sister city and in taking a trip to Monasterolo about the facts reported on this website, and hopefully we will have a civil, respectful discussion addressing all these violations. Sister city programs are based on the dialogue, and the 2 minutes limit to talk at the Sister City Commission is suppressing the dialogue. On November 14, at the Sister City Commission meeting, I pointed out Mayor Green that my records show that his letter dated September 26, 2017 to Mayor Cavalier of my hometown of Monasterolo is not telling the truth. He and President Sandra Cherokee did not object about not telling the truth and stated that I am not a resident of Monasterolo but in DeSoto. Is this a satisfactory answer? To create a more peaceful world, only the citizens of Monasterolo should be respected, not Saluzzo, DeSoto, or other town. Action must be taken to correct this situation, and the citizens of both towns must be informed with the website duncanvillemonasterolo.com. We should be able to address issues with mutual respect in a civil dialogue and build a more human world and stay away from hatred. Thank you.
Item number 4 are the consent items, and they're items 4A through 4F. And at this time, I'll ask the city secretary if she will read the captions on those, please.
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the November 21st, 2017 City Council regular meeting. 4B, consider a resolution authorizing Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson, LLP, to obtain an order of sale which will allow for the foreclosure of and to authorize the sale of the properties by Dallas County at public or private sale in accordance with Section 34.05 of the Texas Property Tax Code for the following properties: 315 South Horn Street and 502 Alameda Avenue. 4C, consider a resolution authorizing the purchase of personal computer hardware and related equipment from Dell USA LP through the Texas Department of Information Resources, contract in the estimated amount of $150,000. 4D, consider a resolution authorizing the acceptance of the subrecipient grant award from the Federal Emergency Management Agency through the State of Texas Division of Emergency Management Performance Grant, FY 2017, in the amount of $32,528.55 to reimburse the City of Duncanville for a portion of emergency management-related expenses such as fire, chief emergency management coordinator's salary, and fringe benefits. 4E, consider a resolution authorizing the purchase of mobile data computers, MDCs, and related equipment from GTS Technology Solutions through the Texas Department of Information Resources, contract number DIR-SSD-1951-R in the amount of $62,841.28. 4F, consider an ordinance amending ordinance number 2321, fiscal year 2017-2018, master fee schedule by adding fees for vacant buildings and street change requests, and renumbering the remainder of the fees as provided in Exhibit A.
Council, you've heard the captions read. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Will you please vote? Thank you very much. Item number 5, or item for individual consideration, and 5A is to consider approval of a resolution adopting the Parks Master Plan.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Bart Stevenson, Director of Parks and Recreation. Again, I want to take this opportunity to thank the City Council, our Park Board, and our Steering Committee for leading us through this project. Most importantly, I want to thank the citizens of Duncanville for coming out and showing your support and providing your engagement in this process. We have gone back and made a few changes to the document since our last meeting, cleaned up some of the typos that were in that document. We matched up the demographic information to our comprehensive plan, so all the demographics that are shown in our comprehensive plan are now shown in the Park Master Plan. And unfortunately, I did find one still small mistake as I was perusing the document again today that we will clean up in the final document, and that is that there's a reference to existing trails of the trail map that we need to remove from the legend. So we'll get that done for the final document, but I think we've caught everything else, and it's clean now at this point. So with that, I want to bring up Philip Neely with Dunaway Associates to go through the presentation for the master plan. Oh, I do want to make one other comment. I do want to note that this is a high-level document and that all of the projects that are identified in the master plan would come before the council, come before the park board for consideration and funding at the time that we try to move forward with those projects. So even though you see something in the document today, doesn't necessarily mean that it's set in stone. It's just a plan for us to follow to guide us through the next 5 to 10 years, but all the projects would be vetted further as we move forward with those particular projects.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Philip Neely with Dunaway, our project manager, and thanks again for your support, but Bart and Timothy and Pam and the staff and Park Board and certainly the Steering Committee, great appreciation for their close connection to us through the whole project. And again, I'd like to reinforce that when you brought us on board to do this, you were doing your comp plan, and I continue to express that it was really wonderful timing. We don't get to do that very often where we can share that kind of information while the comp plan is being undertaken. But I'll hit the high spots again and certainly be willing to take any questions. Just quickly looking back, 2 major phases we went through. The first phase is about really documenting the total system and then reaching out into the community, trying to get feedback. We did a benchmark comparison against some cities and some aspects of their park system that would be comparable. We looked at standards, et cetera. But phase 1 was ultimately about the public involvement in the citizen survey results. And then that helped us go into phase 2 where we begin to set priorities. Again, we're looking big picture, total system, and it gives you a framework to look at certain segments within the community and needs, and then big picture, what would be total needs, maybe trails or other types of improvements that can be upgrades to parks. So it gives you, in a sense, a roadmap to work from each year on your CIP. That led to the action plan, and then implementation is about where, potential cost, what could be some funding sources. It would be your dollars or other dollars that could work together, and then ultimately putting together the document and some of the mapping that's in there. The action plan, again, I think this is important always to touch on. When you sort through the ranking of priority needs, there's the top 9 that obviously those become very much a key focus for you in terms of updates, new items in parks. But the other items, it doesn't mean that those just get put off. Sometimes strategically an item can come up that it's a moderate need or a low priority need, but it has other funding sources or it has a potential to happen more quickly. So we don't want to discredit those at all, but on the high priority items, again, I'll just go through these quickly, the top 9. Trails are always high, and they ended up being the highest ranked need in your community. That does not mean they're always long, lengthy trails. Sometimes they're simply adding a new loop in a park or a connecting 2 segments. So it's upgrading the walking, the jogging, the connectivity between parks and neighborhoods and parks to other city facilities or locations. Very important. Second, were benches and seating. Obviously, these provide rest points as well as visual points for users of the parks. They're very low cost relative to the benefit long term. Sometimes these can be sponsor benches that companies and individuals help sponsor. Third item was spray grounds and splash pads. You're probably familiar, very popular across the country. We have such a hot climate throughout most of the year that these are very popular, much better cost from a cost standpoint than trying to do the old lap pools. So spray grounds and splash pads. Fourth, nature trails. This would be the softer trails that you take advantage of along natural corridors. And so they don't necessarily have to be paved. They could be various types of soft surfaces. 5 is shelters and pavilions. That would be immediate impact in your park system would be the addition of shelters and maybe even theming those to really brand those for Duncanville. Shaded playgrounds, you have several that we've just noted need to be shaded, existing playgrounds, but new playgrounds can take advantage of shade that's added or even positioned to take advantage of morning or afternoon shade from the existing trees. 7th is continuing to take care and expand and update the senior center, which is very popular. So that was obviously noted by the community. Basketball courts. It was mentioned earlier. Basketball courts don't have to necessarily be a full court. They're very popular to have half courts and small shoot-around courts. So basketball, which is a pretty high demand in your community, can occur in different scales and different capacities. So that'll be an item that can be looked at in the future parks where they've been noted. And lastly, a dog park, again, similar to spray grounds, very popular and trendy, can occur in natural sites where you have certain pen areas for the different size dogs, et cetera. Y'all probably familiar with that. So again, we've tried to keep the park board engaged and our steering committee, good input, good refinement. So now the master plan is to the point where once you pass a resolution, it can help really guide year by year. And I'm sure Bart will send it to Texas Parks and Wildlife to put it on file with them for any future grant funding you might want to go for. So I'll be happy to take questions.
Councilmember Rutherford, have you got your mic on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyone? Okay, go ahead.
I've got one question. Sure. Just something I've noticed. The splash parks, obviously, it's recommended that we build one over here, you know, by City Hall. But how are the selections of the other? In one part of the report, there's 2 recommended, and in another part, there's just 1. How were those sites chosen?
2 or 3 things. We would look at it from a total mix of users. What type of park, scale of the park, could it complement other features? So we would, in our studio or in our review of it, and then we would test that back with staff and with Park Board. Is that the appropriate, sometimes a splash pad is very small. And it's not doesn't have to be a half acre. So it could just add a water element that's a cooling effect, and it could have misters or sprayers. So again, like playgrounds, they can differ in scale. But we would have gone through site by site, trying to evaluate where would be an appropriate location, and then essentially just test that with our committee and with the Park Board. So that's the process we went through in listing those.
Well, there's nothing, we approve this tonight, there's nothing that locks us in to 3, 2, 1,
That's exactly right.
7
That's
locations.
exactly right.
If we decide we like it, we can put them everywhere, so.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
All right, Mayor and Council, again, as Bart said too, this is just a guide. It's a master plan, and it gives suggestions for the various parks. There's a lot of work that would go, and obviously the first question is funding, being able to fund those improvements. And so as we go through, either through the general fund, the budget process, or through bond issuance, or organizations that may offer funding, or through grant opportunities, we will come back to council then with those ideas, and then we would have a conceptual plan for those and vet that through the council for approval. So it can change, and I would dare say that this plan will not be implemented 100%.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, the chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the park master plan.
Second.
It's a motion and it's second. Is there any further discussion? If not, will you please vote? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 6 are staff and board reports. The first one is item A, and to receive the Economic Development Department quarterly report.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. During this quarter, this actually accounts for the 4th quarter of the fiscal year. And looking at it, this as, like I said, the fiscal year 16 and 17 work plan for economic development. As you can see, we had 4 different objectives. Objective 2.2 is completed. Objective 2.21 in terms of creating a tourism program is ongoing. And as council knows, we've taken the initial steps towards that direction in terms of contracting with the Chamber of Commerce as our official visitor center, as well as recently contracting with HVS Consulting to do the feasibility study on the possible conference center, co-working space, and art space. Objective 2.2 is completed. The TIF number 1 has been created, and the board has been meeting on a fairly regular basis and moving forward. We will be bringing back to you the annual report here in the next about a month, and for council to review and approve. Objective 2.28 is develop a marketing plan to brand Duncanville as a city of champions. And this is ongoing as well. As council knows, we just spoke about in the briefing room that we are in the process of designing a new logo, along with that, the new branding efforts. So this will be brought back to you in terms of moving forward with the logo, as we said at the next council meeting to vote on for that committee. In terms of the market updates for the quarter, it's been very exciting. It actually equates to 243,084 square feet of commercial space was leased. This includes 21 new businesses. A couple of those businesses, just to highlight, would include GK Steel, Supermercado, as well as a smoke and barbecue restaurant. These 3 restaurants alone, or businesses alone, account for over $3 million of new investment into the Duncanville community, which is very exciting. In addition, there were 4 business expansions. Those businesses included Thibodeau's Cajun Restaurant, All Saints Rehab and Injury Clinic, the Family Dollar Store, as well as the Duncanville Automotive Store. What we always like to look at is really what are the new market trends? Where is the market going? That's what developers are looking at. That's what site selectors are looking at when they look at our communities. And really, everything's being centered around those first 3 words. And really, the millennials are driving a lot of this, but food, fit, and fun. And that's really what they're looking for. They're looking for that experience. Moving on to clicks to bricks. What that basically means is consumers are more and more purchasing their items online. However, they're still wanting to go into the store and having that personal shopping experience, but maybe not the hassle of going through the process of actually purchasing it. Experiential retail, basically what that means is they want more than just the average shopping. They want to have maybe shopping and a manicure. They want to eat pizza and possibly rock climb. So really, in terms of the demand for the market and the demand for consumers, it's going to the next level. It's combining multiple experiences into one venture or one event. And smaller retail space. That's something that we're seeing is that really because consumers are purchasing more items online and because they're looking for more of that experience and that diversification in terms of experience while they're shopping, retailers don't have to have the large space that they used to because they're looking for a small space where they don't have to carry quite as much merchandise on hand. Really, Duncanville can capitalize on this. Because we're not like the other communities that have a lot of vacant big box stores, we're able to capitalize on this in the future with those small boutique retail places where we have great prices, great rental prices, and we can still cater to that demand for the market. In terms of the business developer and property owner engagement, developers and brokers, we had engagement with 5 different ones. They included residential, such as home builders, and also commercial, which included brokers for a number of the properties here in the community. A couple of those included, we worked a number of times with Barclay Construction, and then also we worked a number of times with, for instance, Brand Capital. In terms of retailers, you can see up there, we really worked with 3 main retailers during this quarter. Home improvement, we actually had conversations with Ace Hardware, and they were looking at a site in Duncanville. Family fashions and home goods, we're working with Melrose Family Fashions. That's one that we've reached out to. And then National Foods Company. This is something that we've talked about a number of times. We continue to work with them. And we've been working with them over a year and a half to try to get them to go into the Wheatland Plaza shopping center that we're all aware of. So those are ones that we continue to work on. In terms of restaurants, you can see there the different categories that we've been working on. Mexican restaurants, steak restaurants, fast casual, sandwich shops, and family casual. Those include everything. We've reached out to a variety, including Rose's Cafe, the Corner Bakery, some of the different sandwich shops, Jersey Mike's, Jimmy John's, the Cracker Barrel, the Walnut Cafe. So just a various group of restaurants that we've been reaching out to. And we actually have leads on 3 really promising restaurants at this point. And so as those develop and hopefully move forward, we'll be able to bring those exciting news back to council. In terms of manufacturing, you can see up there, we've had engagement with 7 different ones. A plastics company was a molding company, and they were actually looking at a 50,000 square foot building and a minimum of 5 acres. Unfortunately, we weren't able to accommodate that, but what we did was, through that contact, is that we were able to develop a relationship with that site selector. for potential businesses in the future. We do receive a number of state leads, and again, really our limiting factor there is simply the space that we have available. We also continue to work off and on with a wine bottling company that is in Duncanville, and we continue to try to work to break down those barriers to entry and also to find that perfect location that they're looking for. Moving on, in terms of other hotel developers, we continue to have different developers that are interested in building hotels here. Obviously, we want to be very aware and cognitive of the fact that we don't want the market to be too saturated. Entertainment venues, we continue to look for different entertainment venues to expand the experience of Duncanville residents as well as visitors to the community. And then professional services companies. We continue to work with them as well. For instance, Corbett Mitchell Media and Consulting. We were able to find her a location for a new business here in the downtown area, so that was very exciting. Lewis Pools is another business that we continue to look at to try to find them a new location as well as they are relocating. In terms of what we do through this process, is the Economic Development Department provides potential businesses with the information that you can see. And we've talked about this before in the past, but I just wanted to bring it back and highlight it. We obviously provide information highlighting Duncanville, demographic and psychographic information. So that basically includes our demographics as well as the shopping needs and habits of our target customer or area that we do target. Market potential information, which is leakage or gap analysis that we do on a regular basis. We also provide available site information. We work with there's really 5 major properties in terms of vacant properties that are in play currently, and we have a regular relationship that we work with them on and providing that information to new businesses that come to town or are looking at Duncanville or we are recruiting. In addition to that, we also provide services if someone was to call and they wanted to start a business, they're an entrepreneur and they want to start their own business. And so we work with them on providing information. We have packets that we can provide through the governor's office, as well as we also recommend them to the Small Business Administration office in Cedar Hill. Continuing on in terms of existing businesses, you can see the different activities that we assisted with. One of the highlights is we provided 12 informational incentive packages. And what that means is those were businesses looking to either expand or improve their signage or improve the aesthetics of their building, all increasing the sustainability of our community. And so we continually work with them. We explain the different grants available. We explain the different opportunities that we can partner with them to really help make their business a success, which overall helps Duncanville succeed. Moving on in terms of the property managers and owners, we continue to provide them with information on different leads for their properties. We provide them leads on possible buyers for their properties, and we continue to work overall to help them expand their business here in Duncanville. Other activities that the EDC and Economic Development took on during this time is the DCDC held its annual strategic planning session and established its top 5 goals. And you can see those goals are listed there. First is to identify, prioritize, and pursue projects that can be funded through grants and public-private partnerships. This is a big goal for the board and a big focus. Second is create a commercial rebuild program, and this is something that I briefly spoke about in the past, and this is something that the board will be working on and we'll be bringing it to council for consideration in the future. And really what this is aimed at is really revitalizing and repurposing some of the buildings that are distressed properties currently. Moving on, assist in the development of the Duncanville rail strategy. Rail continues to be a high priority and a high focus for the board, as they believe that really a lot of the success and the sustainability of Duncanville's future is really wrapped around the transportation opportunities that we have. Identifying and prioritizing shopping centers that are opportune for pad site development and work with necessary entities to pursue the target businesses. This is something that staff will work very closely together. Economic Development will work with Planning and the Public Works Department along with the board to further identify these and what opportunities that we have with the comprehensive plan, working together with that to put that in place and address those issues. Promote the design incentive grants to target areas. And you can see down there on the bottom of the screen, the target areas that the DCEDC has selected include I-20, Main Street, Camp Wisdom Road, and Highway 67. And these goals and target areas all correlate and correspond with the comprehensive plan. Moving on, the DCEDC also approved a $150,000 loan to the TIF for seed money. At this time, that money is set aside to grow and look to be able to do future improvements with that in the TIF area. And those improvements would be considered by the board and then obviously approved by the city council at a future date. We attended a number of meetings and workshops throughout the quarter. Just to highlight a couple, you can see down there, the ED department also works with the Hot Fund grants, as you all know, and so we worked with 6 different grant recipients to help implement those grant funds and maximize their usage. You can see also that down at the bottom that the DCEDC approved a $5,000 paint grant to Leon Miller for his business, which council approved as well, for his business on Main Street. At the next meeting that I present, I will be bringing back pictures so you can see just what an improvement it's made. And if you get a chance, you should drive by that property and see. Continuing activities, you can see that up there in the corner that the council, as well as some of the DCEDC board members and staff, did attend a ribbon cutting at the Smoke and Barbecue restaurant. We're really excited that they were able to somewhat repackage their business and reopen it here in Duncanville. So that's a tremendous asset for our community, as well as we now also have the catering component too that when they kind of broke off that they're offering as well. And then you can see down there at the bottom that the ED staff continues to assist the Parks Department in developing basically the proposed field house facade improvements. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have. Okay.
Question?
A lot of questions, just a comment.
Yes, sir.
We've known you've been real busy the last couple of years, and I really appreciate you and your staff in this report because it highlights a lot of the activities you've been doing that's come out for everybody to see. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wanted to ask, you talked about when you're working with businesses, that you have, you give them, I guess, data to determine the shopping habits of residents. What mechanism are you using to determine the shopping habits of our residents?
That's a great question. We actually use the ESRI data. That is the same data that all the major site selectors in terms of Buxton or Retail Connection or the Retail Coach, that is the same place that they all gather their information as well. And what that does is you're able to highlight an area. It's based on credit card receipts. It's based on demographic information. It's based on census information. And this ESRI software, the business analysis software, actually runs those reports for us. So it's not anything personal that we're calculating. That's actually being done by a third party. In addition to that, we're also looking at a new software where you can actually geocode, and what that would allow us to do is specifically pinpoint by telephone usage where the different customers are coming from for each individual business, which we can use in our targeting efforts as well.
So we're also able to capture data of non-residents that are spending money in Duncanville?
That is correct, yes, sir. In fact, we have our Duncanville data that we have, but we also have, it's about a 93-mile radius, I guess you would say, that we use. It's really our target focus area that we know, and the reason why we know those are boundaries are that far. It's simply speaking to the different businesses, such as Papados. Where are your customers coming from? That type of thing. And so we're really able to effectively pinpoint kind of what is our target, or some people want to refer to it as drive time. It's gotten a lot more complex than that in terms of our target market.
So we're not just sharing the residents, but also people are coming from other areas that in a
Yes,
so
sir.
many mile radius of us.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right.
Yeah, I've, just a comment about that, I've seen some of that in action, and it's unbelievable, the information they got. They can tell you how many women you've got that shop within a certain age group, within a certain financial range. They can tell you whether they got a college degree or, it's unbelievable what they can come up with.
And what their buying habits are too. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
6B is to receive the police department quarterly report, and I'm going to turn that one over to the city manager.
Mayor and council, the police chief was called away unexpectedly, so there will not be a police quarterly report tonight. We'll defer that to a future meeting.
And then item number 6C is to receive the monthly financial report as of October 31, 2017.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Getting right into our report, this is for the month of October. So our benchmark is that we should be at about 8% of our respective adopted budgets, both on revenues and expenditures. Our general fund outlook is that our unreserved fund balance is at $7.4 million and $1.2 million in excess of our 75-day fund reserve. Our overall general fund revenues and transfers are at 9%, so we're right on target, tiny bit above. Property taxes, excuse me, they're of course due at the end of January, so most people pay in December, in January, and a few people in February, but the majority comes in December and January. And of course, there's a 2-month delay on the receipt of sales tax revenue, and our first October sales tax we will get shortly this month. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. I met with the city manager this afternoon, and we talked about some ways to maybe make the graphs a little bit more readable and not quite as convoluted as they were. He didn't ask me to do this for tonight. He said for a future date, but I couldn't quite put it down. So I want to thank my assistant director, Tia Pettis, and my accountant, Jamie Smith, for helping me think through and come up with some a potential solution. So you can give me some feedback if you like this. And thanks to Cody for putting this in literally at about 5 o'clock tonight, getting this changed over. And so basically what I've done away with is I've kind of replaced, I've not necessarily done away, but I've replaced the straight line budget report that typically was on a purple line. And so what we have left is we have our 3-year average, which is the blue line that comes up here, so you can see that. And so the only month we have to plot is, at this point in time, is for October. But what I've done with the straight line approach is I've taken that and I've said, okay, we're going to start off with an actual, and each month we'll plot the actual. But you'll also know that kind of from this starting point here, that the remainder of these months are plotted out as the adopted budget, what's left based after the actuals are plotted out. So this essentially, for the remaining months, is the straight line approach to earning revenues or expenditures over an even amount per month, if you will. And so it doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but I think as we plot out the next months, you'll see kind of based on that trend line, whether we're going up or below that line, and you'll be able to see. So as I noted before, general fund revenues are pretty much on target, actually a little bit below this time of year because we haven't started to receive those property taxes, and they'll show up in, as we noted before, in December and January. So, moving along to the property taxes, you'll see this same thing throughout all the slides that I've made this same change. So this 3-year average is the blue line, and then of course we've received hardly anything in terms of property taxes because the statements just went out in October. A little bit will start trickling in November, and then December and January you'll see those actuals start to take up, similar to this trend line for the 3-year average. Then same thing with expenditures. This is a 3-year average, and so for October we were a little bit above that average, and we'll continue to plot out those months as they come in. And then on the utility fund outlook, the ending unreserved fund balance is at $7 million, and that's about $3.9 million above the 60-day reserve. Our utility solid waste revenues, they have a 1-month delay due to the billing process, so our October usage is billed in November. So when we look at our revenues, again, there's nothing to report for October yet, and so we have our 3-year average, and then we'll start plotting out in November what those October actuals are, et cetera. Same way with expenditures. The blue line is your 3-year average, and you can see here that we started off just a little bit below that 3-year average with expenditures for October. And then this is our Innovation Fund projects for fiscal year 18, and important to note that our fiscal year 17 overage was about $37,000, a little over $37,000, and we also have $103,000 that is undesignated that we left for contingency within the Innovation Fund. And with that, I'll answer any questions. I'm sorry.
The Innovation Fund from FY17, that wasn't an overage.
I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. That was, back up to that. That amount for $37,000, that was a carryover. It was that we were underfunded, or I mean, we were under budget on the projects that we had for fiscal year 17. Thank you. Didn't say that correctly. So we have excess left over from the Innovation Fund from those projects.
Questions, comments? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was the last item on our agenda tonight, so it's 8:01 and we will stand adjourned.